Hello from Ottawa. I'm Zaeira Yakova with MetroCity Property Group, and today I'm joined by my good friend and real estate lawyer,
Adada from Kelly Santini LLP.
Now, we know how much you guys love watching our videos on government regulations and rules and changes. Today, we're bringing you another exciting video about condo status certificates. So, when you're buying a condo, one of the most important steps is to understand the health of the Condo Corporation. We know that people don't love to pay condo fee, but the condo fee covers some major work that as a first-time home buyer can be very helpful. For example,
Maintenance, insurance, but for the building, not content insurance. And it also covers sometimes hot and cold water in a condo corporation. From building to building, it does differ. And it can also cover
windows. In some cases, I've seen that, and it can cover landscaping for buildings too, which is all great. But the question is, how do we find out what's covered? How do we know, what the condo fee is? Why is it so important to get that reviewed with a real estate lawyer, and what does it cost? So we'll start off with the cost, Sarah. What does it cost to have that reviewed by your lawyer before you make a purchase of a condo?
So to have it reviewed by a real estate lawyer, at Kelly Santini, we charge $150 to have it reviewed. It could take us between 24 to 48 hours. But that's if you do already have the status certificate included in the listing with the seller.
Yes, because in most cases, we advise our sellers to pay $100 to their condo corporation, order that certificate, and have it on file. So why are we putting 2-week conditions for buyers to have the status certificate reviewed if the seller doesn't include it? Why does it take 2 weeks then?
Well, for $100, whether it's the seller who orders it or the buyer's lawyer who orders it, it takes 10 business days for the condo corporation to return it to your lawyer. If you order it on a rush basis for 5 business days, you have to pay $200. So that's why we typically see conditional period of about 2 weeks to have it reviewed by your real estate lawyer.
So if a seller has it ordered already and it includes it with the listing, then they are speeding up that transaction process, and they are just having it ordered on hand, and that buyer is going to be saving that 10 days and that $100 to not have it ordered.
Exactly.
That's a really great due diligence on the part of the seller. And at MetroCity Property Group, we always advise our sellers to have the status certificate ready to go. It shows a buyer that you're not only displaying your beautiful unit, like this unit here at Let Street. You're not just showing how wonderful the unit is inside, but you're not afraid to share the information about the condo corporation and how that money from that condo fee is being managed every month. So let's talk about that. Where does a portion of that money go every month, besides, of course, paying for the hydro in the hallways and the maintenance of the elevators and pools, if there are any? What happens if there's if the roof needs to get done? Is there kind of like a piggy bank or something that they put aside?
Exactly. So every condo corporation has a reserve fund, and a status certificate will tell you about the financial health of a condo corporation. As a condo unit owner or potential investor, you want to know where you're putting your money in. If you don't have a status certificate reviewed, you could be open to surprises once you become the owner with a special assessment or an increase in condo fees if your real estate lawyer does not review that and the budget plan of the condo corporation for that fiscal year.
Okay, so a little bit of lawyer talk here. We'll talk about what special assessment is. So far we know that if you're a buyer and you want to purchase a condo, you want to have that status certificate reviewed with a lawyer, with Sarah Adada at Kelly Santini for $150. It could take 2 or 3 days if it's already available through the seller. You review it and you look for the amount of money in a reserve fund, which is set aside for any major maintenance that's coming up. Wonderful. Now, what happens if there isn't enough money in that reserve fund and some surprise problem arises with the condominium complex? What happens? Because I heard you drop that word that we're all so scared of when we're buying a condo. A special assessment is, I've seen things where people haven't reviewed these certificates with their lawyers and they find out later on.
It's true.
That the fireplaces were leaking and the engineering firm that did them was getting sued. And now all these owners
are responsible
are
for it.
stuck with a huge bill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So especially if there's legal proceedings against the condo corporation, or the condo corporation is after an engineer or one of the contractors that worked on the building, and the insurance does not cover that legal proceeding, then you as unit owners will have to pay for that. Typically, they put it as a special assessment. So you could see an extra $200 a month for the next 2 years to cover that amount that is not there in the reserve fund, or is not going to be covered by insurance. Or if they don't do it through a special assessment, sometimes it'll be shown as an increase in the condo fees. That's still something that you want to be made aware of. And when you have a staff certificate reviewed, along with the reserve fund audit report, the financial reports of the condo corporation, and the budget plan for that fiscal year, your lawyer will be able to tell if there's any discrepancies between the documents, and if he can tell that there will be an increase in the condo common expenses.
Wonderful. So you're able to kind of review those numbers and say, hey, in about a year, based on the studies that have been done, I foresee this type of, a raise in condo fees or special assessment. The good news is, the reason we call this due diligence with a lawyer before you make that purchase is, if it turns out that there is a special assessment in place, my role as your real estate agent is to negotiate the value of that condo. Because if your condo fees are going to increase, that will hurt the value of your condo to a future buyer and to you, and it may affect the amount that you can borrow from a lender if your condo fees are higher. That's one thing. A special assessment being in place on a condominium can be very scary, but it gives us an opportunity to review the market value of that. I've had a situation in the past where there was a special assessment for $6,000,
Yes.
and we were able to negotiate with the seller and agree to have the seller pay it before my buyer closed. The seller paid it, they gave us confirmation that it was paid, and my client bought the property, and they didn't have a special assessment moving forward from that. So the good news is, when you do have this review done,
Then you know what to negotiate for your client.
so we talked about the cost a little bit, and I do get, pushback from buyers about that $150 expense and $100 if they have to have one ordered through their lawyer. But instead of really thinking about the cost of having it reviewed, we really need to understand the cost of not having it reviewed.
Absolutely.
We don't want our clients to be stuck.
Exactly, because
with that
if you
bill.
buy the condo without having it reviewed, you could be surprised with special assessments, asbestos. Also, if there's a certain pipe in the building that is no longer used, you don't want to be surprised with those, because a lot of times what I've seen is that lenders will sometimes pull out of lending money to the borrower because they don't like what they see on the status certificate.
Yes.
So that's something that's very important for potential owners, is that before you buy one, you want to make sure that your lender is going to be happy with that investment you're making.
And to touch back on asbestos. Asbestos is a chemical that was used in, it was a building material that was used, that was banned, decades ago. It was known to cause, it was cancerous, and only if it was touched for a renovation. And the reason we look for that, to make sure that a property doesn't have asbestos, depending on the age of the building, in residential and condominiums, is it can affect you getting insurance on your property.
Absolutely.
So you're looking for those types of things. You're looking for
Imagine the cost to remove the asbestos, because some buildings
Oh, yeah.
are working towards having it removed from their buildings.
it's a big process.
It's a big process, it's
Yeah.
expensive, and it will cost you through special assessments or a rise in condo fees and a rise in your insurance premiums.
Exactly. And that, because that's not a standard maintenance cost, like budgeting for windows as a condo corporation, or budgeting for the roof or the landscaping, that's sort of planned and well managed. And I think working with an experienced lawyer, I believe working with an experienced lawyer like you, Sarah, and you having the experience with all these different condominium corporations, I've been able to contact Sarah and say, hey, I haven't heard of the name of this condominium corporation. What's their reputation? do they do a good job? So it really does help to work with somebody that has that experience in your city. This is one reason that we advise working with a lawyer from Ottawa, because if you're working with a lawyer from out of town because maybe they're saving you $100, they don't necessarily understand the dynamics of some of the different condominium corporations, and the value that an experienced lawyer can bring is worth, it's really worth it. And I've seen that with my buyers. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure, and that's the thing, right? We also have essentially a bank of old status certificates. We don't rely on old status certificates, but it does give us an idea of what happened the year before if you're purchasing this year.
That's fantastic. And Kelly Santini is such a reputable big firm.
Yes.
That you can also go, I'm sure, to your colleagues if there's something that you have to ask, because you work with such a big team.
Yes.
Of lawyers. So that's wonderful. The other thing that we've noticed can add or take away value from a condominium unit is the percentage of owner-occupied units in a complex versus tenanted units in a complex. And from some learning that I've had, and even just looking at units throughout the city where it's more tenanted, the pride in ownership is a little bit different. The building is maintained better when it's more owner-occupied, and the values of those units are in fact higher. So is that a piece of information that you would be able to identify in the status certificate and share with the buyers?
Absolutely. In every status certificate, it mentions how many units are tenanted or not. And of course, we look at that so that we can mention it to our client, who will also need to mention that to their lender, so their lender can also be aware of what they're investing in.
Okay, so lenders ask that too.
Lenders sometimes will say
Okay.
no to a transaction because they don't like what they see on the status certificate
Okay.
and the financial health about a condo corporation's reserve fund.
Perfect. So that's fantastic. In conclusion, if you are looking to buy a condominium corporation, paying that status certificate review fee should be associated with your closing costs.
Yes.
It is just so crazy to me that we wouldn't already be including that in the purchase.
Yes.
It's like buying a car and not asking about the warranty at
Yes,
all. And this is like
exactly.
the health report.
Yep.
On the condominium, you're paying that condo fee every month. You have the right to know where that money is going and what it's going to look like outside of and inside your building once you've purchased that unit.
Exactly.
So we can have it reviewed with Sarah Adada at Kelly Santini within a few days or 2 weeks if it's not already ordered with the seller. And if you have any questions about condominium corporation status certificates, or you want to learn more about what a special assessment looks like, or if you live in a condo right now and you'd need our help with that to understand, we are more than happy to help you. Reach out to us anytime. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes, and we'll see you next time.